What is up, Patreon crew? I'm just going to make sure this is all muted and pause the video before we get too deep in this. What's up, everyone? If you are watching this post show on the Patreon page, all you have to do is click the link at the top of this video, the little hover link, if you hover over with your mouse, or click the YouTube logo, and it will take you over to the YouTube page, which is where we want to do, that's where the live chat room is, right, essentially. Because we can't see a live chat on the Patreon website, but if you go to the YouTube website with this link, you can watch, we can see the live chat there. Oh, great, Mako just joined us. Oh, Doggy!
It is just as I feared. Oh,
no.
She got to the couch and is ripping up the cushioning. They're massive cushions, and she just threw them all over the house. And now she's licking the computer. That's awesome. So it's amazing. I was not a dog person before I moved here, but I quickly had to adapt. And now she's in my bed, which is crazy, but I think she's just going to hang out, and hopefully she doesn't cause too much trouble. If she starts whining, we might have to kick her out again. But Ridley, okay, we'll go on a hike after this, okay? We'll go on a walk.
Okay. Making sure that the house isn't torn apart. I'm sorry that during Ginger Runner Live, the couch got disassembled.
So the inspiration I had walking back to the house tonight was that the song I was going to sing was going to be in honor of Ridley. So each member of my house has a theme song for Ridley the dog, and I hadn't found my inspiration yet. And literally walking home tonight, I got it, and it would be to the tune of Stacy's mom. It would be, Ridley the dog has got it going on. But we'll save that music video for another day.
There's just like so much stuff that we didn't even get to touch on tonight. Thanks for being a good sport too, Amelia. I emailed her about halfway through the show, just like, hey, if you want to jump on, because I think she tweeted out earlier that she was not even available until 6:30. Right. I think she had meetings, which was very similar to last Monday. She is a very busy person. So I just quickly emailed her, like, hey, if you wanted to jump on and have some fun or something, here's the link. And she did. And I'm like, I'm so happy that she did. That was really, really delightful. So, but thanks for being a good sport, Chris.
And I thought I'd be pitting after that. The first time, I think I brought like 3 t-shirts when I hung out with her, just because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so nervous. I'm going
to pit out.
Yeah.
That's so funny. We had a number of questions that just didn't get asked during the main show. So this post show is great for that, where we kind of rapid fire through the questions that didn't get asked. So Kim, go ahead. What do we got?
Question from Phil. Any tips for running through the night? Running my longest event to date, Infamous 88K this weekend. I have never run through the night. Any tips on night running?
My tip for Western States is don't run at night. So that's what I'm trying to avoid. And somebody, I can't take credit for this. Somebody had a great idea, which is to get a sponsor who does headlamps and then send those to all your competitors and say, hey, just in case you need it at nighttime, I'll be done or something. I haven't formulated that completely, but we'll say that for another time. Tips for night. I think with everything going into a race, it's about practicing things in advance. It's very tough to run in the dark, but for most of the year, it's probably easier to do it in the morning than in the evening post dinner. So my recommendation is just get out there, try out the headlamps. I've definitely done races where it's the first time I'm using a headlamp, and first of all, it's on light locks, and then I have to figure out how to undo that, and then sometimes the red light turns on. I don't know how to get rid of that. So just practicing it, even during the daylight, practicing with the headlamp is a good start. But I found out my first headlamp was like the $20 cheapest generic thing, and it didn't have enough lumen to light 2 feet in front of me. And so you actually need to spend some money on it, and it's tough. And obviously, I think the 2 areas, the 2 times during a race where you should run conservatively are one when it's super hot and one at nighttime, just because if you trip on a rock, that could end your day. And if it's a time when you can have a pacer, make sure they have a light, probably at a different angle to illuminate more of the course for you. And if possible, run the course in advance. If you know the trail before you get there, even though it's nighttime, it's going to make you that much more familiar with it.
Those are good tips.
Great tips.
Yeah. Question from Jesse. What would a day look like where you win Western States? What would you have to do right or not do wrong? So your perfect day at Western, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it has to go perfectly to win. I have had a massive leap in my training. And so my confidence going into these longer races, I obviously haven't done another 100-miler since then. Not obviously, there's tons of people who do a lot of them, but I'm doing 30-mile training runs. I've done a lot of long races, and people are like, he's racing too much, but a lot of those were just long run efforts. So my confidence in surviving that long, the way I felt at the end of U-Rock was just phenomenal. And I know that's only 60% of a 100-miler, but it's just light years ahead of where I was last year. I met David at the start of March. We probably had 2 months together. Now I have 14 months basically of training and experience. So all of that is going to be super beneficial to me. But what's going to have to happen, right? There's a couple things that are largely out of your control that you just have to hope go well. So one, make sure I have a great pre-race poop. Like that's massively important. Two, that hydration and fueling continues throughout the day, and that goes well. I wish there was a better way to figure out when you're going to have predict when you'll have stomach issues and when you won't feel like having goos anymore and like feeling low energy. But hopefully that stays regulated throughout. I'm doing a lot this year to practice with hydration. One thing that happened to me about mile 40 was that my arms just got massively tired, and like the muscles in the back of your neck.
Yeah, the tension. Yeah.
Unbelievably sore. And I did not expect that because I didn't train with bottles that much. A lot of my runs in the city, there's water fountains in most places where I just didn't need that. So I've practiced with that. And I've actually had some sleepless nights thinking about what hydration I want at different spots. So I think I'll run with bottles until 30, then get a pack, then swapped for a different pack. And I don't think a lot of runners, at least up front, run with full packs, but I require a lot of water. And last year, almost between every aid station, I was running out of fluids. And I think that definitely didn't help at the hottest part of the day. So I'd like to make sure that I'm never absent of water. So those are important things. And then hopefully the pain doesn't come until a little bit later. Hopefully I can get through the canyons. I'm extremely nervous about that section. It's so difficult. For those familiar with the course, like Devil's Thumb, yeah. I knew that it's like 2 miles and almost 2,000 feet. I feel like really high grade. I thought that was going to be the worst part. It was actually going down beforehand, where I was probably running 14-minute miles and losing 1,000 feet of elevation, which was just not expected, and that just blew out my legs. So if I can get to Forest Hill feeling good and not immediately take off, because there's a ton of people there, you're starting to go downhill, and just run intelligently throughout. I was fortunate I had to take a stop really early on last year, so I kind of immediately lost the pack and spent almost the entire day by myself. And as lonely as that can be, there's a lot of time just to be within your own thoughts. I probably prefer that to being in a pack with folks where I'll feel pressured to either go too fast or too slow. So that's the way the day looks. And by the time I get out of the river, hopefully I'm able to crank it down and really, really accelerate to the finish line. And you have to have faith that anyone who is ahead of you is either going to beat you, and good for them, that's deserved, or they're going to blow up, get lost, have issues of their own. And it's hard to believe that during the race that those things will happen. But I've mentioned this before. I put 4 hours on Walmsley in the last 7 miles. So I have a great kick. Everyone knows that. So if I can get to mile 90 feeling okay, I have a very high confidence in my ability to close. And I have just like these beautiful dreams of like catching somebody in the last mile and just kicking it in on the track. And I doubt that will happen, but I'm going to prepare for anything. And the only thing that I'll be unhappy with is if there's somebody like less than a minute ahead of me. That would be the most disappointing thing for me.
Yeah, and the men's side versus the women's side, the men are like consistently rewarded for being patient. So the guys that you finished 7th last year, which is incredibly solid because you were just consistent all day, rather than going out and putting everything on the line for the first 30 miles, which could essentially lead to a blow up early on. The guys that, look at Andrew Miller, completely flew under the radar last year purely because he was just consistent. He didn't push too hard early on. He was just steady. He ended up winning the entire race. And that always tends to happen on the men's side year after year after year. The guys that move into the top 10 are the guys that were sitting at 20th or 30th within the first 30 miles. And they just stay steady and they keep things dialed. Jeff Browning is Jesse.
Browning,
yeah.
Like those kinds of guys. Yeah.
Ian Sharman, you know, the guys who are just, they're smart. They're old school dudes that just know it's states. I don't need to blast off from the start.
The one thing I will say to that, and this has been very tough for me in almost every race, is that if you're running for even 5th place versus 1st, it's a very different tactic. So this year, I don't think I'm going to be happy with finishing 10th. And so I know going in, I'm going to be taking more risks than I would have done previously. If I ran a conservative race, maybe I'd have a really easy shot at finishing 5th or 6th again. But that's not quite my goal. So I know going in, I'm taking a risk. And this is what happens to a lot of the good runners where you're like, oh, how did he finish 18th in that time? It's because if you go for broke, it's not that they're running unintelligently. It's like you have to take some chances. It's such an unknown quantity, 100-mile races, that you have to take risks. And if you leave it too late and run too conservatively, then you kind of are putting yourself in a position not to be way up there.
Yeah, you pigeonhole. Yeah, you back yourself into a corner that you can't get out of. I think that's awesome. I mean, because you're familiar with the course. You're going to the training weekend as well, and you've run the race before. You know a lot about it. So there's no reason why not to take a risk, to put yourself out there. Go for the gusto. Terrible. That deserves a punch in the nuts. Let's get some more questions.
Question from Randy in the chat room. No shoe sponsor? What do you run in?
It's a great question. I might have to toe a line here. I kind of had a prepared statement, so I feel like choosing a shoe company that's not involved in the trail running world. I do have a pair of bright green Keds over here. So if Keds is looking for a sponsor, I feel like that's my only in to meet Taylor Swift. I think she's still sponsored by Keds. So Keds, if you're out there, I love you. No, I actually have I've been fortunate to be able to test a lot of shoes recently. So I have an arsenal of shoes, and it actually is interesting. I have different shoes based on what I'm doing that day. So I still do some road running. I'm doing a marathon in Ireland in a week, a road marathon. So I'm going to actually be testing out some Adidas the Boston's.
Boston Boost, yeah.
Adi Boost, I think is what they're called. So I have those. I ran in the Wild Horse last year at States. I love those shoes, and they've actually updated it a bit to actually, I like the shoe even more. It's a little heavier, but I prefer a little bit more meat on the shoe. There's a ton of Hoka shoes. I actually haven't tried a lot of their trail shoes, but for the roads, almost all my time in San Francisco, I was in Hokas. I went from mocking the hell out of Hokas and how ridiculous they look to being in love with them. And then Salomon I was introduced to earlier this year. So I did a Salomon training camp and kind of got to test out a lot of their shoes. And they have an amazing array of trail specific shoes where based on the conditions, if it's muddy, they have the soft ground. If you're doing something under 50K, they have these super fast, lightweight shoes. And for other terrains, they have Max King wears these ones that are like super good at like water wicking and releasing water, that are like amphibious shoes that I think are designed for like run swims, the amphibs. So
yeah,
there's a ton of shoes that I've been trying out a lot of shoes recently. I think the Wild Horse have still been my go-tos for key workouts and for these big races. I don't wear them much because I want to save them. You don't get many runs in a shoe when you're doing it at States, but the thing I recommend for anyone is going to a running store. Almost every town has a running specific store, having them fit you, try out a bunch of shoes. Fortunately, my go-to has always been go to runningwarehouse.com and find the sales section and find whatever's the cheapest shoe, which is not probably the best option. It's worth spending an extra $50 to get something that does not result in injury.
What did you wear for Lake Sonoma?
I was in the Salomon soft grounds. I think the Sense soft grounds. I'm not sure exactly what the name there is.
Oh, cool.
If you saw Mountain Outpost did a video, and they caught us first getting onto the trail, and literally the first mud patch, in my soft grounds, which are built for the mud, I completely ate it.
No.
Got on film, so not a great start. And then the laces ended up snapping at the very end of the race, which is just totally unfortunate. But that shoe, you just feel like you're flying. It is so light, but still has a pretty meaty sole. It felt really, really good, and you feel. Once you've tried the shoes a lot, especially in muddy conditions, you start feeling confident, like planting your foot and really releasing. It's kind of, I mean, I'm very skittish when I'm on a road bike, but the way motorcyclists kind of, lean into turns, I would never feel comfortable doing that, but that's the best way to actually approach it.
Nice.
All right. Question from Kimosabi75. Mako.
This guy's a legend. Kimosabi is a legend.
He's a legend. Every episode he's here. He's also a similar guy that followed his dreams. He is now a chiropractor / ART specialist on the East Coast, and it basically pursued his private practice to do that, to make athletes better. Yep.
Yeah. Mako, you're such a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. How low does it get for you during a race? What do you do to get out of those lows?
Well, one thing unfortunately I was pretty happy and talkative at Lake Sonoma. I think I'm going to be in more serious mode at States. Lake Sonoma was an important race, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like I'm going to be much more laser focused, and I'll be trying to enjoy it, but I don't want to come off the wrong way. I need to respect the race. And 100 miles, I mean, by mile 30, I'm going to be super grumpy. Fortunately, at Lake Sonoma, I think we had passed most of. I remember passing Kim, and I didn't know she was in the race. I don't know. I was just like, it took me like 2 miles before I was like, oh my gosh, I have long legs. Oh my goodness.
How is she beating me? She's in first place.
So yeah, Ridley, I agree. So what do I do to get out of the negative spots? Hopefully you have an aid station with pacers you can talk to. So Lake Sonoma had a bit of spot early on. And I know I might have to let Ridley out in a second, but what do? I kind of just talk myself into getting to the next aid station. That's the most important thing you can do. Hopefully you have support at it. Regardless, there's going to be human beings to interact with. Okay, I got to let Ridley out. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Ridley, come on.
Kimosabi's freaking out in the chat room. He's like, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. Us either, Kimosabi. Mako's such a fantastic guest. And Amelia's such a good sport. If you're watching live, make sure you go show Amelia some love on social media. Thank her for jumping into the show, because that was really fun of her to do that. Sorry, go ahead, Mako.
Okay, yeah. So one thing is just getting to the next aid station and convincing yourself you can get there. Those are the best mile marks. And I think I actually did a really good job with this at URock, where kind of by default, your watch is set to do mile splits. And in general, I rarely look at my watch during race. The only time I look is when I start feeling horrible and I'm like, okay, how many more miles left? But I'm never looking at it for pace in the race, primarily because anytime I'm on trails, I don't want to be staring at a watch, because that's as soon as I do that, I'm going to eat it. Right. But in general, it shouldn't be important. So the only reason to have a watch really during races is to know when you should be fueling. And so what I did at that last race was I was just splitting it at every aid station, knowing how far I had to go before the next one. So I had written all the aid stations on my arm. Unfortunately, they washed away, so I lost some of them. But mentally breaking it down like that, I think it's been said before, but I was like, okay, it's not a 62-mile race. It's 4.5 miles to the next aid station. And I'll be able to refuel, get an Oreo, have a candy bar, whatever I need at that point. And if you start talking in miles and breaking it down in percentages too early, it can just blow up in your face. And that's the way Lake Sonoma started. I was at mile 13, and all I could think was, I've done a half marathon and I have 3 more to go and then some. And that's just like a terrible way to approach it. And if I'm at States and I get to Robinson Flat and I say, I have more than 3 marathons left, I'm gonna fall apart. So hopefully the low points happen when you're with other people. When they do happen, I think you just have to identify it and do whatever you can to calm down. I think your heart rate is going to race. You know, start freaking out. Right after Michigan Bluff, I had a really low moment, and I just started walking and started talking to myself and say, hey, let's stop thinking about your place and your time and just worry about finishing and trying to absorb the entire experience. And hopefully I don't have that same thought this year. I want to be competitive the entire time, but you just have to be realistic and keep on moving forward, because every single step you take is one less you've got to do. And that's a pretty good way to think about it.
You mentioned kind of cutting up a course, and that's exactly what I do. I always tend to hand draw or use a profile and stick it in my pocket because I've done the same thing where it washes away. But I have the mileages between aid stations and even on a more micro scale, but the mileages of each climb almost written out to a T, where I know all I need to do is stay within that climb, because the climbs are always going to be the parts that are going to go the slowest.
Yep.
Losing Mako's hat here. So I can just mentally go, I have a 3 mile climb. That is all I'm worried about at this time. It's 3 miles and 2,500 feet of gain or something. So let's just get through those 3 miles. And you can look at your map and go, we're all right. We're at the top. So I know I have 5 mile descent plus the next hill isn't for an hour or whatever. It's really,
I did 8 stations on this wrist, miles of the climbs on this wrist.
Nice breaking it down.
And honestly, most of the time when I'm doing trail runs, especially I'm running with friends, we don't break up the runs by miles. We break them up by the number of significant climbs, because that's really the hard parts of the race. So I think that does help too. And regardless of how many times you've rehearsed and think you know where the aid stations are, you're never going to remember it. So having that written down, or having a pacer who knows it. My pacer for the first 18's already been geeking out, and he was like, I'm going to download the course record pace onto my Garmin, and then we'll know, it'll be a virtual partner. We'll know exactly what the pace is. I'm like, I do not need that information.
Yeah. No, thank you.
No, like all I want to know is how far till the next aid station and when is the next terrible climb. That's all I care about.
Yep, that's exactly right. Let's get one more question here.
Yeah, there's lots of questions in the chat room about your fueling strategy and what do you eat while you're racing.
I thought I was fortunate to have a very sturdy stomach, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact in high school and especially during the summers in college, like running in Virginia in the summer is horrendous, and it's super humid and hot. So I'd almost always delay my run until later in the evening, and my mom, God bless her, would never allow me. Once it hit like 6 p.m., she's like, you need to be there for family dinner. And so I would have dinner, and then I'd have to try to run afterwards. And it was the most awful experience ever. I had no idea about nutrition. And so I'd have these like meatloaf. The only dinner moms know how to make meatloaf, like heavy meals. And then I'd try to go running in the humidity, and it was awful. And I feel like that really strengthened my stomach. I do not recommend it. It is awful, awful way. Flashbacks thinking about, and I had a poison ivy incident where I tried to use poison ivy to prevent chafing, and that's a whole nother story.
Oh my God.
But so that being said, I feel like I have a pretty sturdy stomach, so I usually take in whatever I can eat at an aid station. What I have found is most enjoyable or works the best, I usually do potatoes and salt. If I'm carrying stuff, I would carry salt tablets, but a lot of aid stations don't have salt tablets. So I think salt and potatoes, it works pretty well. And then something I picked up from Roach was gels on the half hour, taking a gel and making sure you have enough fluids to go with that. So honestly, yeah, you probably are better off with a cheap Timex watch and just having it on a 30-minute timer and beeping. But you have to know what works for you. Like Max King, I know, does every 20 minutes, which seems like a lot. So 3 times, that's like 45 to 50 gels during a race. That could be pretty aggressive. But that's kind of been the go-to for me. But I am always experimenting on runs and trying not to introduce anything new on the race day. And it's so easy when you see like Oreos and M&Ms and gummy bears just to grab all of it. And I usually do, and I regret it like 5 miles later. But you got it. The best thing to do is just to continue to eat and drink as much as you possibly can, and it's probably the best.
And definitely do it in training. I can imagine that's where you kind of figure out, oh yeah, pancakes maybe are saved after the race as opposed to mile 35. Chris, it was awesome to have you on the show tonight. This is not the last time, because you're a blast. You're fun. I love watching your content. I'm excited to see how the YouTube channel unfolds for you. The fact that you made Stop Gym shirts is hilarious. You're gonna see a shit ton of them at States, I guarantee you. Once you announce it on Twitter or whatever, I'll retweet it and we'll share it and we'll see if we can't get you some shirts made.
Beautiful.
Go ahead, Kim.
Sorry, go ahead.
The price, I don't know if you got into the price. So I'm not making money on these. The price for them is $13.59. So in
There it is.
I mean, that's the best. They're like super cheap. They're nothing.
Yeah. So the $13.59 one's pretty cheap, and then there's a 24 for the 24-hour cutoff and a 30-hour cutoff as well. So the hoodie, I think it's an 8-ounce Gildan heavy hoodie. So
nice.
Because what the one thing everyone asks at States is like, man, it is so cold. I could really use a hoodie.
I can't wait to wear it at Forest Hill in like 110-degree heat. What the hell is Ethan doing? Stop Gym, man. I'm just dying. Go ahead.
There was a very important pancake question asked by a number of people.
Yes.
What is the perfect pancake water ratio for you? Do you prefer the fluffy, thick pancakes, or is it all about the thin pancakes?
I'm a pretty thick guy, so I usually do chocolate chips and I usually do bananas, and you need a pretty substantial pancake to handle the bananas. So I go pretty thick, and you got to be patient to make sure it cooks through properly.
Does Kodiak have a pretty good social media following? Because I'm tempted to tweet. I really want to taste their pancake and waffle mix. I don't even know if they have it in the stores around us. That's why I'm like, I would love to tweet at them. Do they have a social following?
They, I mean, they've been pretty active with my comments. I think they're loving what I've been doing. I do not think.
No doubt, dude. This has got to be great for them.
Yeah, I do.
Pancake company.
I don't think they expected this. They are available at most Costco's, but that's like the 4.5-pound box. But they're definitely getting out there. I hope they're going to be bringing some more shipments. So worst case scenario, I'll bring a box for you guys at States. Hopefully you guys will be there.
Yeah, the plan at this point is to go. Yeah. We are moving, so our move is like beginning mid of June. So it's going to be like we gotta fly. Basically, we're flying down as opposed to driving, which is what we would normally do. But the plan is to be there. Yeah, we got some stuff to film.
So again,
filming Mako for all I know.
This was actually our first interaction, which I assume you are probably not aware of, but there's one sandwich shop in the little Squaw Village area.
Yes.
And you guys were ordering sandwiches. I was like, Kim's so pretty. Ethan's voice is so wonderful. Like, I have a thing for good voices. I'm a big Josh Groban fan, and I was like, wow, these guys are perfect.
Josh Groban. I would say I met you and Walmsley in that sandwich shop. That was the first time I met Walmsley.
I think we were in like very poor form in that sandwich shop because I think we were starving.
Yeah, we hadn't eaten for, I don't know, 14 hours. And that sandwich shop, for those who maybe have never been to States, there's one sandwich shop in town, in Squaw Valley, it's pretty decent sandwiches. And it's also one of the few veggie options because we're vegetarian. But the line is always out the door around the block, and it's always a big, long wait time. But yeah, that's really funny. That's a good memory.
Yeah.
But I also remember seeing you run by like 100 times at States, just going, that guy is flying. You're going to crush it this year, man.
And this year at Sonoma, I was like, is that Ethan? Because he's looking super fit right now.
So fit.
I don't want to get you. I don't want you getting complacent. I don't know. Are you also coached by Alicia? Or is that just?
I'm coached by Vargo.
Okay.
But let's just be honest. It's Alicia. Vargo's not doing anything.
Alicia's the brains in the operation.
Yeah, Vargo. Vargo's giving me my schedules and stuff like that, which is pretty great.
Alicia, sorry, I'm sorry to keep you guys up. I know we're close to hitting the 2-hour mark, so I'm like, make it.
We've done it before.
Yeah.
We just haven't eaten dinner, so we need to go to that sandwich shop in Squaw Valley real quick.
Alicia is one of the first people I met at Stanford. So during Admit weekend, I visited this area of campus, and she was like cooking dinner for 80 people that night. And I was like, how are you doing the academic workload, winning national championships, and cooking meals on Sunday night? Like, how was that possible? And that was one of the reasons that I went to Stanford. I was like, I want to be so challenged and just worked into the ground. Like, that seems like the most awesome thing ever. And so, Alicia, if you're listening right now, thank you. You were awesome. Chris, I don't know you that well, but you are also pretty cool from what I can tell.
Yeah, he's a
He's
good
all
dude.
right.
Yeah, that's a great character trait of Alicia, that she's housed athletes in Flagstaff for years. You know, athletes that are either coming through or staying for an extended period of time, but she's housed them in her home and fed them or allowed them to stay for free and all sorts of things. She's just been so gracious with her space and helping athletes of all levels and abilities and ages come through. That's testament
and that really
to her
like
character.
shows in her coaching too. That's what I really love about her.
Yeah. But yeah, Mako, man, it's awesome to have you on the show. We'll see you soon, and I'm really stoked for you, man. Really. We talked very briefly about pursuing happiness and stuff on the show, but I think that's why I'm drawn to you just as a dude, because you are someone who's pursuing something that you truly love, and the happiness is absolutely apparent, and you exude the happiness, and it's contagious, and that's a fantastic thing. So keep doing what you love, man, and the financial side of things will follow. T-shirts, it's just the beginning. I promise.
And I also get to check this off my bucket list, so that's another great thing about this. On my list of the year, I'm running out of things to do this year. I've been kind of nailing all of them, but Ginger Runner was definitely on there, so this is a big deal. And more importantly, I just turned on my phone for the first time, and the first message is from Amelia, so I will have some what's going on there. So.
Well,
maybe we can do a double date at Applebee's.
We'll do a double date. That'll make it real easy, real casual. Or you let me know when that date happens, and I'll just come film it. And we'll make a video.
Actually, like Ginger Runner live it?
It would actually be, yes. It would actually make a really funny video, even if we just planned it out, like a sketch or something. It'd be hilarious. All right, man. I'll let you go. We're going to have dinner. And those of you who are watching live, you are supporting us on Patreon, which is a wonderful thing. Thank you so much for allowing us to do what we love. And if you are feeling gracious, also visit Chris Mako's Patreon. I believe it is, Chris, is it patreon.com/
The Mako Show.
The Mako Show. The Mako Show?
I think I have a "the" there this time, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Check it out, and help support Mako's stream as well, it's always a wonderful thing.
There it is.
There it is, right there. The Mako Show.
And I need that intro video. Make sure to send over that intro video, because we will get that.
I'm sending you the link as soon as this broadcast ends.
Beautiful.
Use it, abuse it, whatever you need. If you need me to change the text from Chris Mako Show to The Mako Show or just Mako Show, you let me know.
Okay, and worst case, I'll keep Monday, June 26th open, just in case we need to chat then.
All right.
This is a good guest. Because so often I'm like, it's state's just finished. We have the winner, and you're like, hey, can you come on Monday? He's like, no, I've got 17 interviews booked or something. Good to know.
Although I'm actually very stressed about this. I am the best man for a bachelor party that begins that Sunday. So I am.
That'll be great.
I'm more stressed about how I'm going to feel on Sunday trying to be a good host than I am about the race, because that's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, you just got to finish states faster. Give you plenty of time to catch up on sleep and rest, and then you can go party hard.
Absolutely. All right.
Dude, Chris, have a good one, man.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you, everyone watching. We'll see you next Monday. Thanks for all the support on Patreon. Night, guys.
Good night.
Okay.